China is run by the Chinese Communist Party, it's true. But if you want to meet the world's best capitalists, go to China. But today, in purchasing power parity terms, China's economy is already bigger. And in nominal terms, within 10 to 15 years, the Chinese economy will be bigger in our country. The United States might lose this contest against China.
The biggest geopolitical mistake countries make throughout history is simple. They underestimate their rivals. But sometimes there is another mistake that can be just as dangerous: misunderstanding them. And when it comes to China, this may be exactly what is happening. Many people view the US-China rivalry as a new Cold War: democracy versus authoritarianism, America versus communism. But is that really the best way to understand China's rise? Or are we using an old framework to analyze a completely new reality? This is the argument made by Kishore Mahbubani. Take a look.
I think the Cold War analogy is a very dangerous one to use because it's exactly the wrong set of spectacles to wear to understand what's happening within the United States and China. There are fundamental differences. Okay? And let me just mention a few. The first fundamental difference is that the Soviet Union actually was competing globally with the United States by saying that our ideology of communism is superior to the American ideology of capitalism. And communism can deliver a better life. And so, and as you know, Khrushchev very famously said, communism will bury capitalism, right? That's what the Soviet Union said. So there was a real head-on clash. Now, guess what? China is run by the Chinese Communist Party, it's true. But if you want to meet the world's best capitalists, go to China. China has effectively become a capitalist country, and China is not exporting communism at all. Not at all. In fact, when Mr. Deng Xiaoping came to Singapore in 1978, the Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, said to Mr. Deng Xiaoping, how can we become friends of China if you are supporting communist parties in Southeast Asia that are trying to overthrow our governments? And guess what? China stopped 40 years ago supporting communism. So that's why the Cold War analogy is completely wrong. And the second point is that, during the Cold War, there were lots of countries that enthusiastically supported the United States. Western Europe, United Kingdom, France, Germany were solidly on the side of United States. Japan and South Korea were on the side of United States. Major countries like Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, Indonesia were all on the side of the United States. But today, in the US-China geopolitical context, and this is what my book documents, most countries in the world say, please, we don't want to get involved. Please, keep us out of this. We really think there are more important things in the world to do, like fighting COVID-19. So why are you still having this geopolitical contest? So many of the people for making decisions in Washington, D.C., one reason why they get China wrong in a fundamental sense is precisely because they're using the Cold War lenses to look at a contest which is very, very different. And that's what I hope my book at the end of the day will do, which is will tell them that you must really understand that the Chinese challenge is very different from the Soviet challenge. And by the way, United States won against Soviet Union handsomely. You defeated the Soviet Union. Now, what my book says is that consider the possibility, just consider that United States might lose this contest against China. And just a small historical fact, the United States of America, which I said is the most successful country on planet Earth, is not even 250 years old. Now, this country, which is less than 250 years old, is taking on a civilization that is 4,000 years old, with 4 times the population. The Soviet Union never had any realistic prospect of having an economy bigger than United States. But today, in purchasing power parity terms, China's economy is already bigger, and in nominal terms, within 10 to 15 years, the Chinese economy will be bigger. Now, how can you use the Cold War mentality to deal with a very, very different challenge? And the Chinese challenge is far more sophisticated. I'm not the only one saying this, by the way. In his book on China, Henry Kissinger makes the same point, and as I described in my book, at a one-on-one lunch I had with Henry Kissinger in March 2018, he told me the fundamental problem with the United States approach to China is that the United States doesn't have a strategy. It doesn't have a strategy to deal with China. So that's what my book tries to do, explain how a strategy can be worked to deal with China.
I believe Professor Kishore Mahbubani is absolutely right. And I think this is an important discussion because whether someone supports or criticizes China, one thing is clear. China today is not the China of 40 years ago. So let's take a look at the bigger picture. The first thing we need to understand is that China's competition with the United States is very different from America's competition with the Soviet Union. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was primarily an ideological challenger. It wanted to promote its political system around the world. China's approach today has been very different. After Deng Xiaoping's reform, China focused heavily on economic development, manufacturing, trade, and technological advancement. So today, China's influence around the world comes largely through economic connections. It built infrastructure, it supplies manufactured goods, it dominates industries like electric vehicles, solar panels, and batteries. Now, this doesn't mean China has no political ambitions. It clearly wants greater influence, especially in its own region. But if we compare China with the Soviet Union, the competition today is not simply about ideology. It is also about economics, technology, supply chains, and global influence. And this heads to the second point. The rest of the world does not see this rivalry in the same way Washington does. During the Cold War, many countries were pressured to choose between two clear sides. But today's world is much more complicated. Many countries want strong relations with the United States. They value American security partnerships and technology. But at the same time, they also want economic opportunities with China. China has become the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries. So when Washington tells countries they must choose between America and China, many governments are actually asking, why can't we work with both? And this is one of the biggest challenges facing America's strategy today. Because competing with China is very different from containing the Soviet Union. China is not isolated from the global economy. It is deeply connected to it. Now, the third issue is scale. And this is what makes China's rise historically unique. The United States has competed with many powerful countries before, but it has never faced a competitor with China's combination of population, industrial capacity, and economic influence. You see, China has more than 1.4 billion people. It has built one of the largest manufacturing systems in history. It produces enormous quantities of goods that the world depends on. When measured by purchasing power parity, China's economy is already larger than America's. Of course, economic size alone does not determine global leadership. The United States still has enormous advantages in areas like the dollar system, military alliances, world class universities, and technological innovation. At the same time, China also faces major challenges, including demographics, economic restructuring, and geopolitical tensions. But the important point is this: the US has never dealt with a competitor quite like China. And perhaps the biggest difference between Washington and Beijing is how they think about time. American politics naturally focuses on elections. Politicians have to respond to voters, media cycles, and short term pressures. China's political system allows its leaders to plan over much longer periods. Now, this does not automatically mean China will succeed. Long-term planning has advantages, but it also has weaknesses. A system with less political competition can sometimes make it harder to correct mistakes. But when two major powers compete, their different approaches to time matter. And this brings us back to Mahbubani's argument. The biggest challenge for America is not that China is becoming more powerful. The challenge is figuring out how to respond to a world where another major power has returned. Because the question is no longer, how do we stop China's rise? The more important question is this: how do we manage competing with China without creating a conflict that damages everyone? History shows that great powers often clash not only because they are rivals, but because they misunderstand each other. And perhaps the biggest test of American leadership in the 21st century is not whether it can defeat China, it is whether it can understand China. So, what do you think? Is America using the wrong strategy to deal with China? Or is this rivalry unavoidable? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into geopolitics and global affairs. Thank you for watching.